Thank you, Senator May, Senator Serino, members of the Aging Committee for the opportunity to speak today. Senator Serino invited me to address this meeting because of my research and commentary on pandemic defense and how New York's pandemic defenses can be strengthened. This is a matter of special concern for older New Yorkers because they're typically more vulnerable to infectious diseases, and they were the predominant victims of COVID-19. One of the bills on today's agenda would create a new agency, the Office for an Age-Friendly New York, with the purpose of helping older New Yorkers remain healthy and active in the communities of their choice. It's a worthy goal, but the state cannot hope to achieve it or become age-friendly until it properly reckons with the events of the past 2 years. The coronavirus hit New York, and particularly downstate New York, harder than almost anywhere else on Earth. If New York City were its own country, its mortality rate would rank as the 5th worst in the world. And that's largely based on the spring of 2020, when a few harrowing weeks, the hospitals were overflowing and critically ill and bodies were piling up in refrigerator trucks. The virus struck people of all ages, but it was the elderly who bore the brunt of the almost 71,000 New Yorkers who died. 2 out of 3 were over 70 and 8 out of 9 were over 60. Many of those losses could have been prevented if New York's state and local governments had been better prepared and responded more effectively. A study from Columbia University estimated that if the state had locked down just 1 week earlier, that would have saved 17,500 lives. And if New York's public health system had performed at the level of South Korea's, its death toll today would be closer to 9,000 instead of 71,000. And of course, the majority of those saved lives would have been senior citizens. There were serious failings in Washington too, but under our federal system, state governments bear primary responsibility for public health. The key to being better prepared is to learn from hard experience. The state needs a careful and comprehensive investigation of its pandemic response, ideally conducted by a commission of outside independent experts. Otherwise, there's a danger that the lessons of this disaster will go to waste. The investigation shouldn't be about pointing fingers or shaming officials past or present. It should be about understanding what went wrong and devising systems to get things right in the future. It should be done in the spirit of the National Transportation Safety Board, whose studies of air disasters have helped make aviation one of the safest modes of travel. The review should focus primarily on the truly public parts of the public health system, the preventive measures that are meant to protect whole populations rather than treating individuals one at a time. If these upstream systems such as surveillance and stockpiling and planning had functioned better, the pandemic might never have become so severe for the downstream parts of the health system, such as hospitals and nursing homes. A recent audit by the health department kind of points the way to this kind of constructive approach. The auditors showed that the state had a system for tracking viral outbreaks in nursing homes, known as NORA, but that it wasn't working for years in advance because of non-compliance by a lot of facilities, and therefore it didn't provide the early warning that we needed of COVID in nursing homes. So that audit did a good job of pointing out that NORA should be repaired or replaced. It didn't recommend any changes, but now is the time to have that discussion. It's also come to light that the pandemic stockpile was full of materials that were years past their expiration date when we needed them most. And the public deserves to know what's being done about that as well. These examples really are just scratching the surface. There are dozens of other questions and issues across many agencies and different levels of government that are crying out for analysis and reform. And this is the time to do it when memories are fresh and there's money available for this kind of work. The governor could form a pandemic study commission on her own authority under the Moreland Act, But in the absence of action by her, I think the legislature needs to step up with a commission bill of some kind of its own. And as long as that job is not done, any promise of making New York age friendly will ring hollow. Thank you for listening.